Okay, so I want to go over the DIY underquilt that I made for the Hennessy Hammock. And I thought the best way to do that would be to pull up some cheesy graphics that I put together in Photoshop. So this, of course, represents the Hennessy Hammock. To the left and right are the suspension lines, and then the top and bottom are the guy lines, the elastic guy lines, that stretch the hammock out for its width. And trouble is, most of the ideas that I came up with, the DIY underquilts would tend to want to hang like this, with it being parallel to the suspension lines. And of course, with the Asym hammocks, that doesn't work, because this will require you to lay here like this when you're actually supposed to lay like this. So what do we do? I got a sleeping bag here, and I'm trying to run some lines through it and see if I can accommodate the Asym design. So if I tilt it, this is okay, but I really don't have a way to stretch out the width of this thing until I force the corners to connect to the four lines of the hammock. This will force the sleeping bag into a parallelogram shape, causing it to bunch up a little bit on the ends. Now, if I was to just elastic cord this, then the sleeping bag is free to move in any direction, and I don't really have a way to make the sleeping bag snug up underneath me and cradle tightly underneath. So I decided to put some lines in, a static line that would also have to be forced to the four corners of the sleeping bag, but I should be able to adjust them as well. That was rather tricky to solve, and through a lot of trial and error, what I figured out was that I need a combination of elastic and solid connections on all four corners. So the solid connection that I decided to come up with was the rope would be forced around the perimeter of the sleeping bag by placing key rings inside the four corners and running the line through that, so that if I was to pull outward along the suspension, that static line, what it would do is it would bring the perimeter of the sleeping bag up closer underneath me, but would also have a side effect, and that is to force the underquilt to go narrower, reducing my coverage. And so what I decided to do was to force a solid connection for the four corners of the sleeping bag to the two sides of the sleeping bag to the two sides of the hammock. And the combination there of the solid and elastic is that the sleeping bag is solid connected to the sides of the hammock, but the hammock is elastic to the ground already. If I do put too much tension on, as the sleeping bag narrows against my sides, it forces the hammock to narrow as well. So that as long as I don't have it too tight and too narrow to the point where it's uncomfortable, I know that wherever I am inside the hammock, I know there's underquilt underneath me. On the suspension end, I put a shock cord connecting the ends of the sleeping bag to the suspension lines to keep the sleeping bag from riding down the lines. Okay, so here we are in my kitchen, and we're just taking a look at the mock-up version of the DIY underquilt. I got it all put together with duct tape. It looks horrible, but I tested this outside, and it did quite well. So of course, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take apart the mock-up, get rid of all the duct tape. And I'll open it up and we'll have a look inside. And here's the rectangle of static line that I mentioned earlier. Okay. Now these are the side connections This is the carabiner that connects to the side of the hammock, and the ring that stays inside the sleeping bag, and the little strap is the static connection between the two. So I'm going to use the key ring action here to put the ring on the rope. And then that goes on the corner of the bag. And on the end corners, I'm using a larger key ring, and I've tied a piece of shock cord to that ring. So I'll take the suspension end of the rectangular rope and put it through the key ring, and you'll see that when I pull on the line, it can adjust inside the hammock, but when I pull on the shock cord, the bag will go with the cord. Now on all four corners, I'll use some zip ties here to cinch the bag down to the static line in this case, and I'm basically pinching the corner of the sleeping bag so that the bag doesn't slide out beyond the ring, so the ring doesn't pop out of the sleeping bag. Like so. And then after I've done that on all four corners, then I went ahead with the reflecting bubble wrap. I cut it out the size of the sleeping bag, and then I cut it into a parallelogram, basically to mimic the shape of the Hennessy Hammock. And then of course I stuff it inside. And then when it's all done here, I'm just checking out the lines. You can see the lines going through the rings, and there's the larger ring there, you can see. So the last step then here, once everything all tucked inside, will be to sew the end of this thing shut. And here I am running this through my wife's sewing machine. And there you have it. So I can still unzip it to stuff whatever I want in there, and of course right now I have the reflecting bubble wrap. Okay, so now I'll do a quick demo of the underquilt as it's hanging under the hammock. I've already set up the Hennessy Hammock, and I took the tarp off because it's going to interfere with the view of what's happening. So I'll just get this clipped up and then take you around and show you all the connections. Okay, so here we are starting at the head end of the hammock. It's a little dark out, and hopefully everything turns out okay. So from the end of the underquilt, we have the static line, that's the white cord, and the shock cord, that's the black one. And the black cord comes up and just hooks onto here. And what that does is it allows the sleeping bag to ride up and down the static line. And then the static line just gets prussiked out here. And then this is how I adjust the tension on the ropes, which run around the perimeter. And that is what allows me to adjust how much it snugs along my body. And on this side, we have the underquilt side pinned straight to the hammock, and that's the solid connection, and the stretchy connection is already part of the Hennessy Hammock. That's this bit of shock cord here. Now on the other end, we have the exact same thing mirrored. So this line here, that's for my zipper. We've got the shock cord and the static line running through a little key ring attached to the carabiner for the shock cord, and then that's prussiked out again to adjust the position and the tension. So now let's hop in and show you. I'll have a seat in here. Okay, kick off the shoes, lie inside, and now with the Asym, of course, my feet are toward the back and my head is more out toward the front. I will grab actually before I do that, I'll reach through here and adjust this thing so that it's where I want it. Okay,
So now if I have the line tension too much, what will happen is it'll want the hammock to go narrow, and these guy lines won't be strong enough to pull the hammock and the underquilt wide. The Hennessy is meant to sit wide, but the upside is with the underquilt carabiner to the sides of the hammock, no matter how narrow the hammock goes, it's not going to allow the underquilt to slide out off to the side or anything. It's going to force it out like that. Now, I'll put the bug net over. Give the zipper a pull. And of course the head one I can just reach. Like so. There it is. So now it does make the hammock a little narrower. If I were to do it again, and I probably will, I'll look for a slightly wider sleeping bag. Not quite double. I do have a second sleeping bag which I was able to zipper to this one, but it was too wide. But as far as warmth and comfort, I'm pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good here. I can already feel the warmth just under my legs here and under my butt and my back. And I know that no matter where I am in this hammock, there's underquilt underneath me, and I don't have to fiddle with it or anything like that. That's it. So, if anybody else wants to try this out, hope you enjoyed the video, and if you need more instruction or any more details, get in touch. Now, I plan to take this with me on my 1 week solo, and I don't know what kind of temperatures I'm going to be looking at. One concern I have so far is that the reflecting bubble wrap underneath, it makes it a little difficult to pack. It doesn't stuff into a stuff sack very well. I have to roll it, and when I roll it, it's this wide. So what I may consider doing is attaching that to the outside of the pack somewhere. I would rather be stuffed into my dry sack with my sleeping bag. What I may do is just go to a space blanket and forget the bubble wrap portion, and just duct tape that to the inside or something like that. But when I go on my trip, I'll give you an update. Thanks for watching.